The responsibility is to be accurate. The responsibility is to be truthful. The responsibility is not to mislead the viewing public.
I was betrayed. The betrayal cut so deep that even when I lay down, I still feel like someone stuck a knife in my back. That scary line came quietly from a mysterious interview tape that people said belonged to Lorne Greene, the man known for years as the calm, kind spirit of Hollywood's best days. The tape showed up online for just a few hours before it vanished completely, but it was enough to shock anyone who watched it into complete silence. Because in that dark, shadowy video, Greene was no longer the loving father from Bonanza, but a man carrying a lifetime of pain, finally ready to name the people who dragged him through his worst times. With a tired, stressed voice, Greene said that the people he once thought were co-workers, friends, and even family were actually the most cruel. Some had ruined the biggest role of his career right when he was about to hit his peak. Others had used his name to spread nasty lies, almost dragging him into a scandal that could have destroyed his good name overnight. And maybe worst of all, the people he had protected and helped ended up betraying him for money without any hesitation or guilt. So who were the names Lorne Greene resented until his very last day? In this video, we look at each one and show a side of Greene the audience was never supposed to see. Number 1. John Wayne, the icon who sparked an unwanted rivalry. Their conflict didn't start with yelling, cold stares on set, or small fights on screen. Actually, neither man had ever said anything mean to each other. What started everything was something much bigger than both of them: the huge change in Hollywood during the late 1960s. For many years, traditional movies had been John Wayne's kingdom. Ever since Stagecoach in 1939, he ruled the Western movies with a powerful presence. But a new world was coming, one Wayne never thought would challenge him: television. And leading this revolution was Bonanza, starring Lorne Greene. Every week, the show pulled in tens of millions of viewers, often beating the popularity of big Hollywood movies. Two different worlds, two different work styles, two powerful influences. And without meaning to, Greene and Wayne ended up being seen as rivals in a fight neither had wanted. The spark finally lit on April 14, 1966. At the Beverly Hills Hotel, John Wayne stood in front of a crowd of reporters to promote El Dorado. The room was full. Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, every big news outlet was there. Then someone from the Herald-Examiner asked a question: would the rise of TV westerns make film westerns less valuable? Wayne didn't pause. Leaning into the microphone, he answered straight out that television westerns were weakening the true heart of the genre. The second those words came out of his mouth, the press twisted them into something much more explosive: an indirect attack on Bonanza. Within hours, headlines from the San Francisco Chronicle to the Denver Post made Wayne's comment look like a direct hit at Lorne Greene. And just like that, a conflict born from Hollywood's changes became personal, at least in the public's eyes. For Lorne Greene, who read the article first thing on the morning of April 17, 1966, in his dressing room at Paramount Stage 10, the feeling wasn't anger, it was like he couldn't breathe. He didn't want to be pulled into the battle between movies and television, and he definitely didn't want to be made into an enemy of an icon like John Wayne. Dan Blocker, his Bonanza co-star, remembered that Greene slammed the newspaper down on the table so hard that a makeup bottle fell to the floor. It wasn't that he was mad at Wayne, but because Wayne had accidentally set off a media storm that hit Greene overnight. By April 20th, NBC had gotten over 200 letters demanding that Greene defend television. The Bonanza team had to hold an emergency meeting just to figure out how to deal with the press. Greene, who always stayed calm, felt his reputation was being pulled into a debate where he hadn't even said a single word. The tension didn't go away. In August 1967, the Chicago Tribune published a shocking article called "Greene and Wayne Face Off in Palm Springs." The piece said the two were seen at the Palm Springs Convention Center during a city fundraiser, standing near each other in an atmosphere that felt tight as a drawn string. There were no photos, but even just the suggestion was enough for rumors to spread across local news, like KTLA 5 News and KC Sacramento. Bonanza fell into chaos, forcing director Leon Benson to call an urgent meeting to calm the cast. Greene wasn't angry at Wayne. He was angry at how the media turned silence into conflict, making two men with no real bad feelings into symbols of opposite sides. That simmering anger stayed for years, reaching its worst point in February 1971 when Playboy published a long interview with John Wayne. The content didn't mention Greene or Bonanza, but publications like New York Magazine and Chicago Sun-Times purposely created a contrast. Wayne was strong, Greene was calm. Wayne represented the rough Wild West, while Greene stood for the polished TV version of the Western. The media blew this difference way out of proportion, until in a meeting at NBC on March 12, 1971, Greene had to ask his assistant to filter out any article mentioning Wayne so he wouldn't get dragged into the constant mess. But under that frustration was a deeper layer few people knew about. Greene had been a wartime radio announcer for CBC during World War II. Every day he read casualty reports, haunted by the job of delivering heartbreaking news to millions of Canadian families. This experience gave him deep respect for those who had truly served in the military. So when the press praised Wayne as the symbol of the warrior spirit, even though Wayne never served in World War II, Greene felt something was wrong. He never publicly criticized Wayne, but those close to him said that sometimes he showed discomfort whenever the media kept portraying Wayne as America's hero without acknowledging this fact. Though this opposition never became a direct fight, it made Greene careful every time Wayne's name came up. For Greene, Wayne was not an enemy, but a long-lasting source of annoyance, enough to make him keep his distance. He felt that whether Wayne meant it or not, he always managed to pull Greene's name into stories that Greene had no interest in being part of. As media pressure grew, Greene began to see that this time in Hollywood was not just about the battle between movies and television, but about one generation replacing another. What surprised him even more was that soon after, a new wave of competition from Europe began flooding into the U.S., along with the arrival of a young actor who helped create a new kind of cowboy style, one that Greene found even more threatening than the noise Wayne had left behind. Number 2. Clint Eastwood, the man who made Greene feel obsolete. The tension in Lorne Greene's heart had been building since the early summer of 1966, a time when no one on the Bonanza team was ready. On July 1st, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly premiered at the Criterion Theater in New York. In just over 10 days, United Artists box office reports showed the film quickly climbing to the top nationwide. This didn't confuse Greene, but what truly hit him was an article in Time magazine on July 23rd. The magazine gave 4 full pages to praising Clint Eastwood, calling him the man who brought the spirit of the Wild West into a new era. The closing sentence left Greene shocked. This is the kind of cowboy who survives not on moral beliefs, but on pure survival instincts. Greene had played Ben Cartwright for nearly 10 years, the perfect father, the emotional heart of the entire Ponderosa. But in just one sentence, he understood the world was moving in a direction completely different from the one he had known. The tension only got worse when the Los Angeles Times published a sharp analysis by critic Jock Moffett on August 12, 1966. In it, Greene was described as the overly careful symbol of television, while Eastwood was shown as the disruptive force reshaping the cowboy genre. Within a single day, over 30 local papers quoted the piece, making Greene and Eastwood look like complete opposites in the public's eyes. Usually calm, Greene could not hide his disappointment at seeing his name turned into a marker for an old era. By the end of August, he arrived on the Paramount Stage 16 set with a heavy heart. Crew members later said that he rarely brought newspapers onto set, but that day he held several folded copies in his hands. He didn't say a word, but his silence said everything. Everyone could feel the struggle of a man who felt pushed aside by the very industry he had helped build. Bonanza still topped the Nielsen ratings, but those articles made Greene painfully aware that change was coming. By 1968, that awareness had turned into real pressure. In September, NBC sent around an internal report to production leaders pointing out that audiences under 30 were increasingly drawn to a new, edgier Western style. That same year, Hangin' High, starring Clint Eastwood, ruled the box office for more than a month, proving the huge shift. On October 18th, during an NBC meeting at Burbank Studio, a director said bluntly, "The audience is looking for something grittier." For Greene, Eastwood was never just a rival. He was the sign of an era ending, leaving Greene to face the unsettling truth that the Western world he had mastered was changing without him. To Greene, Eastwood was more than a rival. He was the symbol of a door closing, the sign of an era slipping away. Everything Greene represented, discipline, moral strength, the steady father figure, suddenly felt out of place in a market that valued toughness over guidance, cold calculation over warmth. The tension grew even sharper when Eastwood moved into directing in the early 1970s. On December 23, 1971, Dirty Harry hit theaters, immediately becoming a cultural hit. Though it wasn't a Western, Eastwood's cold, silent intensity made him the new model of the leading man, a figure the public couldn't ignore. The media grabbed onto the contrast, painting Eastwood and Greene as opposites. By 1972, at least 16 articles were directly comparing the rough new wave to the calm, disciplined television icons of the previous decade. TV Guide's March 1972 headline cut deep. "One belongs to yesterday, the other to tomorrow." Greene didn't respond publicly, but those close to him saw a subtle habit develop. He began bringing magazines into his dressing room, only to fold down the pages he didn't want to see, letting silence speak for him. That silence carried the weight of words he refused to say, a quiet defense against the sting of media stories. Eastwood's personal life also became material for comparison. From 1969 to 1972, press coverage of his scandals and contract fights was constant. Though Greene had no interest in these stories, the media framed him in contrast, reserved, composed, steady, against Eastwood's unpredictable, free-spirited personality. Being used as the background to someone else's drama made Greene feel sidelined, a role he had never experienced before. NBC editors would later remember that from 1972 onward, Greene began refusing meetings about changing audience trends, knowing Eastwood's name would always come up as the sign of a shifting era. He didn't hate Clint Eastwood. He hated the fact that Eastwood represented an age where Greene no longer fit. This quiet frustration ate at him as Bonanza entered its most troubled years, marked not by outside competition, but by problems within. Creative disagreements, staff changes, and subtle tensions on set, especially within the Cartwright family, created challenges far more complicated than the industry battles outside Hollywood.
Number 3. Michael Landon, the rebellious son who challenged the father. Once the playful, happy son, Michael Landon began to show up as a creative force, challenging Greene's authority. For years, Greene had kept the rhythm of Bonanza running with the precision of a Swiss clock. Every morning he arrived at Paramount Stage 16 at 7:40 a.m., earlier than anyone else, checking props, meeting with the post-production and lighting teams, making sure the show ran without any problems. But by late 1966, a new current flowed through the Ponderosa, one that came in the form of his on-screen son. Landon, who joined in 1959 as a young, energetic actor, had always brought energy and humor behind the scenes, but by November 1966, he began quietly changing the way he worked, writing small story ideas about his character's personal journey without talking to Greene or the experienced writers. When NBC approved one of these drafts and gave Landon credit on the February 5, 1967 episode, the production crew was shocked. Greene read the assignment sheet in the script room at Stage A1 and realized that the creative control, once firmly in his and the veteran writers, was now being shared, reshaped by a new generation. By 1968, script meetings at Paramount's A2 room crackled with tension. Within minutes, opposing views crashed together. Landon pushed for a shift toward emotional storytelling, diving into pain, breakthrough moments, and personal conflicts, challenging the established rhythm Greene had perfected over nearly a decade. The Ponderosa was changing, and Greene could feel the ground beneath him shifting with every passing scene. Greene was never against change, but he held a firm belief that Bonanza needed to keep its core, the family values, integrity, and moral lessons that had brought millions of viewers every weekend. From that foundation, tensions with Landon slowly grew. Each saw the other's ideas with growing suspicion. When Landon suggested giving younger characters more screen time, Greene saw it as drifting away from the heart of the show. On the other hand, when Greene insisted on keeping the established structure, Landon saw it as a possible roadblock, resistance that could leave Bonanza falling behind the changing landscape of late 1960s television. The quiet friction reached a peak in June 1972 during the creation of the episode Forever. The script pushed the younger characters to the front, making Ben Cartwright mostly a symbolic presence. One writer remembered Greene sitting completely still over the first page, so quiet that the hum of the air conditioning seemed unnaturally loud. Without a word, he set the draft aside and walked out. That silence hit harder than any argument could have, leaving everyone in the room aware of the unspoken tension. Creative meetings during this time often stretched late into the night. By July, sessions could last hours, with Greene and Landon facing each other like opposing generals, neither willing to give in. Greene argued that the show must keep its soul, while Landon pushed for growth and adjustment to match changing audience tastes. Though their disagreements never turned into shouting matches, an unspoken weight filled the room whenever they were together, making the air thick with every exchange. The pressure went beyond the sound stages. From 1969 to 1973, Michael Landon's rising fame became a constant presence in popular culture. Magazines like Photoplay, National Enquirer, and Movie Mirror, as well as television programs like Inside Hollywood, followed his every move. As Landon became the face of the new generation, Greene felt the shifting currents more strongly, aware that the show he had nurtured for over a decade was changing in ways he could neither fully control nor ignore. For years, stories about Landon's lifestyle, relationships, and rumors kept his name constantly in the headlines. Greene, who had always avoided personal gossip, found himself unwillingly dragged into a whirlwind of public attention. After nearly every article mentioning Landon, NBC would call Greene to the PR room, asking him to approve a statement in case reporters came asking. He never blamed Landon. His respect and care for the younger actor were real, but the constant intrusion chipped away at his sense of control, not only over his work, but over his own public image. The reality was clear. There was no personal hate between them. Greene remained the face of Bonanza, the central figure on screen, but behind the scenes, the young actor now steered the ship. Greene knew this, and in those last months he would often sit quietly in his dressing room before each scene, as if practicing the acceptance of an uncomfortable truth. The constant battle with Landon drained Greene, leaving him half exhausted, but what waited for him next demanded even more watchfulness. Just as internal tensions were reaching a peak, an outsider arrived at Ponderosa, bringing with him a fresh storm of rumors and chaos. From the very first moment he stepped onto the set, Greene sensed the need for caution.
Number 4. Parnell Roberts, the rebel who never stopped fighting. One of the longest-lasting pressures came from within. Parnell Roberts, the rebel inside the Cartwright house. Lorne Greene's exhaustion wasn't caused by a single clash, but by a 6-year-long rebellion that had started during Bonanza's second season in 1960. Crew members from Paramount Stage 12 remembered that there wasn't a day Roberts didn't raise some complaint. Each complaint seemed aimed right at the core of the show Greene had built for years. Roberts held strong artistic beliefs. He pushed for a grittier, more realistic picture of the West. But Bonanza had been built around Ben Cartwright as the moral, idealized father, a figure too perfect for Roberts' taste. In a 1963 interview with the San Francisco Chronicle, Roberts bluntly called many episodes modern-day fairy tales, a statement that sparked controversy and pulled Greene into the public eye, despite his avoidance of conflict. What frustrated Greene most wasn't Roberts' critique of the show itself, but his attacks on the father figure at its heart. Roberts constantly argued that Ben Cartwright's authority overshadowed Adam Cartwright, his own character, creating an unbridgeable gap between them. Script meetings in late 1964 often turned tense, with Greene keeping a calm exterior while internally struggling against criticism aimed at a character he had spent a decade shaping. Roberts' personal life added fuel to the fire. His outspoken opposition to certain social policies and frequent appearances at debate events earned him the label of Hollywood's most unpredictable star. Suddenly, Bonanza, a family-oriented series, was linked in the press to political debates, a connection that only deepened Greene's irritation. The combination of internal conflicts marked the start of one of the hardest periods in Greene's time on Bonanza, testing his patience, professionalism, and dedication to the world he had created. By 1965, tensions on Bonanza had become part of Lorne Greene's daily life. Parnell Roberts' rebellion grew when he refused to attend promotional events and suddenly skipped a charity game in Las Vegas. NBC turned to Greene to answer for actions he had no part in. It was in that moment Greene realized Roberts' defiance had become more than a personal challenge. It was a burden he had to carry. Even after Roberts left and later returned for special episodes, Greene's focus would shift whenever his name came up. He never hated Roberts, but the constant friction drained him, leaving a quiet exhaustion that stayed long after the cameras stopped rolling.
Number 5. Guy Williams, the outsider who brought chaos. That man was Guy Williams, the newcomer whose presence threatened to bring disrepute and trouble directly into the heart of Bonanza. In the fall of 1967, as Bonanza enjoyed one of its most stable periods on Paramount Stage 12, an unexpected announcement from NBC sent ripples through the crew. Guy Williams was set to appear in a special episode. At first glance, it seemed routine, but for anyone who had followed Hollywood's press for the past 2 years, Williams' arrival felt like a dark cloud rolling in from Santa Monica. The tension wasn't about talent. Williams had been loved since his Zorro days, but about the storm of controversies that had followed him since his 1965 departure from Disney. Months of contract disputes, heavily reported by Los Angeles Times, Variety, and TV Guide, had painted Williams as unpredictable and unstable. In 1960s Hollywood, even a hint of such baggage could make co-workers wary for years. As soon as NBC made the announcement, reporters immediately turned their questions toward Lorne Greene. Journalists asked whether Greene disliked working with strong personalities, bringing up past articles about Williams' messy split with Disney. Though Greene kept his usual polite manner in interviews that November, those close to him noticed clear discomfort. The unease got worse when Williams arrived on set on December 3, 1967, followed by a swarm of paparazzi, including reporters from the Hollywood Citizen News. They weren't there for Bonanza. Their cameras were aimed at Williams, eager to document his career comeback. Greene, who had long protected the calm rhythm of Ponderosa, was furious when filming stopped so security could clear the press. For him, the set was sacred, a space of order, and he would not tolerate disruptions after more than a decade of keeping it smooth operation. Tensions between Greene and Williams grew quickly. Williams, careful in his craft, demanded reshoots if he felt an expression wasn't perfect. Greene, who liked efficiency and continuous flow, got frustrated at these delays. During the first week, at least 3 scenes for episode 2850 were redone multiple times, frustrating Greene to the point that he left the set earlier than usual. Crew members later remembered how the air seemed to freeze whenever Greene passed Williams, as though 2 different worlds occupied the same stage. There were no shouting matches, but the silent tension said everything. Greene began keeping his distance, talking only when absolutely necessary. Williams, sensing the tiredness, approached carefully, creating awkward moments whenever they had to work together. Bonanza, known for its smooth on-screen harmony, suddenly felt like 2 separate shows playing out on the same set. By the end of January 1968, when Williams' episodes were finished, the atmosphere at Ponderosa slowly returned to calm. But the memory of those troubled days stayed. Greene saw Williams' presence as a storm passing through, while Williams felt he had never fully belonged. Though these disruptions seem small looking back, they hinted at even bigger challenges that lay ahead for the Bonanza team.
Number 6. Dan Blocker and the pressures from all sides. But not all tension came from disagreements about ideas. Dan Blocker, the gentle giant with antics that made Greene feel helpless. Where Roberts tested Greene with debates about realism and storytelling, Blocker's lighthearted nature and casual disregard for schedules chipped away at Greene's carefully maintained routine. Late arrivals, offhand jokes during serious scenes, and playful antics that disrupted rehearsals forced Greene to deal with personality conflicts as much as creative ones. Blocker never meant harm, but his carefree spirit clashed with Greene's discipline, creating moments of quiet tension that marked years of filming. Crew members often described Greene as patient yet quietly burdened, a man carrying the weight of the show while managing those around him. Above all, pressure from the top made every conflict worse. David Dortard, NBC's notoriously demanding producer, had a reputation for turning meetings into battlefields. From 1963 to 1969, as Bonanza dominated the ratings, Dortard examined every detail from Ben Cartwright's wardrobe to the exact timing of dialogue. Whenever Michael Landon or other writers challenged the direction of the show, Greene was called to mediate, to calm tempers, and to keep production on track. Long after meetings ended, Greene often stayed in hallways, collecting himself before returning to the set, carrying the emotional fallout of disputes no one else had to bear. Dortard didn't make him hate the work, far from it, but the constant responsibility and scrutiny made him careful, wary of every unexpected call or gathering. Even scandals from other shows reached into his world. In 1968, when Mitchell Ryan faced public scrutiny over personal troubles on Dark Shadows, the media immediately drew comparisons to Bonanza. Although Greene had no connection to Ryan, he was forced to answer press questions, explain potential risks, and protect the image of a stable, family-friendly production. Hollywood offered him no break. A simple mention of another actor's name could turn into hours of defensive explaining. Greene tried to limit his exposure to unrelated controversies, but the machinery of the media made sure he was always in the storm.
Amid these challenges, Greene maintained his composure on screen, portraying Ben Cartwright with unwavering authority, moral strength, and fatherly warmth. Off-camera, however, the pressures of rebellion, clashing personalities, and constant media scrutiny wore him down in ways few could see. Each conflict, Roberts' ideological pushback, Blocker's playful interruptions, Dortort's controlling oversight, and the intrusion of unrelated scandals layered onto the previous one, shaping a career defined as much by resilience and strength as by talent. Through it all, Greene never let hatred take root. His frustrations were quiet, internal battles, fought with measured patience that kept the Ponderosa running smoothly. But the exhaustion, the constant watchfulness, and the invisible weight of responsibility left deep marks on the man behind Ben Cartwright. Every disruption was a reminder that the life of a screen father came with unseen burdens, a balancing act of keeping integrity while surviving Hollywood's unpredictable storms. Behind the calm smile and the reassuring presence of Ben Cartwright, Lorne Greene endured years of battles no audience ever witnessed. Every rebel, every prank, every scandal became a test of patience and endurance, a testament to a man who carried not just a character, but the soul of an entire show on his shoulders. And though the cameras captured only the heroism and wisdom of the Cartwright patriarch, off-screen, Greene quietly bore the tensions and turmoil that came with being Hollywood's most beloved father figure. Lorne Greene's story is more than just a tale of Hollywood conflicts and professional rivalries. It's a powerful reminder that the faces we see on screen often hide struggles we can't imagine. Greene maintained his dignity, his professionalism, and his commitment to quality entertainment, even when the weight of expectations, changing times, and personal betrayals pressed down on him from every direction. He never sought sympathy, he never publicly complained. He simply showed up every morning at 7:40 a.m., ready to be the father figure millions of families invited into their homes each week. That level of dedication, that quiet strength in the face of constant pressure, is what truly made Lorne Greene a legend, not just for the character he played, but for the man he was when the cameras stopped rolling. The betrayals he felt, the resentments he carried, the exhaustion that weighed on him, these weren't signs of weakness. They were the price he paid for excellence, for maintaining standards in an industry that was rapidly changing around him. Greene's legacy isn't just Bonanza. It's the example he set of grace under pressure, of professionalism in the face of chaos, of staying true to your values even when the world moves in a different direction. Want to discover more hidden stories from Hollywood's golden age? There are countless untold tales of legendary stars who faced similar struggles behind the scenes, stories of triumph, betrayal, resilience, and redemption that never made it to the screen. Hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss our next deep dive into the secret lives of your favorite classic Hollywood icons. Turn on notifications to be the first to know when we reveal another shocking chapter from television and film history. Drop a comment below and tell us which classic Hollywood star's untold story do you want us to investigate next. Your suggestions help shape our content, and we read every single comment. Share this video with anyone who loves classic TV, Hollywood history, or Bonanza. These stories deserve to be remembered, and legends like Lorne Greene deserve to have their full story told, not just the sanitized version Hollywood wanted us to see. Remember, behind every iconic character is a real person with real struggles. By watching, sharing, and engaging with these stories, you're helping preserve the true legacy of the stars who shaped the entertainment we love today. Subscribe now, hit that notification bell, and join us on this journey through Hollywood's most fascinating untold stories. See you in the next video.